Nice. Hello from South Korea. I'm trying to do a more variety of my weblog, so I'm taking you guys on the road. Today we are outside. It is up top of the mountain that's right by where I live, right at the top of a nature trail. As you can see, a little bit of the nature that's surrounding me. I hope the sound of that bird cheeping isn't coming off as loud on the video as it is in my ear right now, but we're going to try this and see how well it works. So it's been a little bit since I've done my last update. We had on May 1st, we celebrated Children's Day at my school, and so we took the students on a hike. I went with the first, second, and third graders. We loaded up on our little bitty bus that could hold all of 19 people, and we went up to the mountain. We were hiking about 2.5 hours straight with these little kids. So American kids, you guys are wimps, because these kids made it all the way. I mean, there was times where I was holding hands and holding backpacks and trying to encourage people to get up off the ground, but it was a lot of fun. And at the top of the mountain was of course a temple, and we had a picnic lunch, and the lunch they brought was actually hamburgers from Audrey, which is one of the only that I know of Korean fast food places here. And then the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, they went and did the second leg of the trail. So they went another hour hiking. And the mountain that we went up, I mean, it's not like you gradually go up the mountain. It was, you're going pretty steep for most of the way. I have a lot of pictures I took and I put them on Facebook. But instead of going with the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, the vice principal actually took me, because there was no school that day, took me in the afternoon to visit this local temple that was in Yeongju. And it's very famous. It too was on the top of a mountain. So right after, I'm going hiking back up a mountain again, up through a lot of stairs to get to the temple. It was very pretty. The legend has it is that there was this monk that came from China, and he was going to come to Korea, and on the way there was supposed to be a storm, so this woman that was madly in love with this monk threw herself into the ocean and became a dragon, so that she was able to take the monk to safety to land. And they built the temple on the land, and there was a floating rock that was supposed to represent the woman, and it was supposed to be levitating, and they say it's still levitating. Basically, there's like 2 big rocks jammed together, and you're supposed to be able to take a string and go through the rocks to prove that they're not touching. They look like they're touching to me, but we'll believe their little dragon story. But that was the story behind the temple. And after we went there, we went and had potato pancakes and makgeolli, which is rice wine, and then we went back to school, only to leave. And Hyunjin was with us because she normally is at the school on Thursdays, and she got to go hiking and went with us on the temple to kind of help translate. The vice principal, he's okay in English, but he still gets a lot of things confused, and she acts as a pretty good translator between the two of us. But then she took me, just like an average Thursday, we go on different adventures. We went to Pungi, which is a town neighboring where my school is, and they're very famous for ginseng. And we went in this ginseng market, and the only thing in this market was ginseng, like the raw, what's kind of like a rooted vegetable, or they make candies and syrups and different things. And we spent a lot of time going through different markets looking at that stuff. They had me try this ginseng fluid. They didn't even label it as juice. They labeled it as fluid, and that's what it tasted like. If you had this rooted vegetable out of the ground and you put it in water and then you shook it around and then gave it to someone to drink. That's what it tasted like. We also went looking at different clothing stores because apparently the majority of the summer clothing that people wear around Yeongju they get from this one town because they can make it really light. Look like normal clothing to me, but whatever. And then we went, I had Siboki with her family. She has 2 kids that are both teenagers. And so that was a very busy Thursday. The night before, we had went in Korean class. It's just like any student when you go to class and you hear, we're not doing class today. It's like, yeah! Even though like I'm choosing to go to this class. It was Heather's last day, and so our teacher, Sam, she took us to Noreban to do some karaoke and had a lot of fun with that. I'll miss Heather, but she's supposed to be back in a couple of months, so she should be back right before I take off to leave. So that was my very busy day. Right before my very busy weekend, because the next day is when I left. The Saturday I left to go to Seoul, and I'm sure some of you at least have read on my blog about the craziness that all went down in Seoul, as it tends to be when me and Lori travel. This week has been a little bit calmer, but on Friday I did get to go on a fishing trip. I told Hyunjin that I wanted to go fishing sometime. I told her this on a Thursday, and on Friday I'm walking to the bus and I get a text message, meet me at 5. I'm like, oh. And I scroll up and I see that she sent other text messages. There's this other teacher that works at the school that she's at 4 days a week, and he likes to go fishing, and she asked him when the next time he was going fishing. He said that night. She asked if she could bring somebody along, and he said sure. And I'm like, alright, willing to go. Kind of a last minute thing. I didn't have anything packed, but she picked me up right at the bus station as soon as I got out of work, and we went. And she tells me on the car ride that she was hoping to not go along because fishing's not really her thing. And I'm like, I don't know this guy, but alright, sure. And then she tells me when we get closer, I didn't really tell him that you were a foreign teacher. I told him you were a teacher, and he knows you're a female, but he doesn't know that you're a foreign teacher. I'm like, information you probably should have shared. And so when we go to meet him, we meet him in this park area. He's like, no. As soon as he sees that I'm obviously not Korean, because he doesn't know English that well and he didn't feel comfortable. So Hyunjin decides, well, not really decides. The teacher pretty much said, you're coming with us or we're not going. And I'm like, oh, I'm making this uncomfortable for everybody. But they were in good spirits about it, and we went to, I guess it's technically in Yeongju, but it seemed kind of a far drive. It's definitely on the other side of town. So past all these different farms, there's this little lake, and it was very beautiful. We went, and he set up 2 different fishing pools. One of them was a traditional Korean fishing pool, and then one was traditional Japanese fishing pool. It's different than fishing in the United States. You have this long pole, and you kind of root it into the ground, and there's this little bobber thing, and if it moves ever so slightly, you then just take the rod out of the contraption and you can't get up. And then the Japanese one is this very thin bamboo, and it's more sensitive, so it still has its own different little bobber thing, but it's more like you just feel it, and if you feel it just slightly move, then you yank it up. I was using both of them, and he's like, the Japanese one costs equivalent of about $900, and I'm like, oh, I'll stick with the Korean one. We were fishing till 11 o'clock at night. It was dark. We had glow-in-the-dark bobbers, and we had a flashlight. Sinjin didn't cook, but didn't fish, but she was like cooking us dinner. She made us this little portable stove. She made us some ramen, and we had brought some gimbap, so we had our own little dinner. I did catch a fish. It was about this big. Apparently, it is a Korean carp. I didn't have my camera with me because I didn't know I was going fishing that day. But I think the man took a picture with his camera phone, so maybe he'll send it to me. And he caught a lot. He caught 7. So apparently he was way more observant than I was with the fishing. But I had a lot of fun. I mean, his fish were small too. It was just a small little lake. So it was a good experience. I would still like to go like on the boat deep water fishing. We'll see if I have time to do that while I'm still here. But it was nice. It's nice to be able to just like say you want to do something and then somebody coordinates it and then you just randomly go the next day. So when else is that going to happen? Then Saturday we had a going away party for some friends, Melissa and Chris. They're from South Africa. They work for a private school and their contract is up, so they're leaving. And while I didn't know Melissa very well, Chris went to Taekwondo with me. He was the only English speaker in class and the only one really, my age, my height. So we were always partners. And I'm going to be sad now he's not there. He had gotten his black belt last month. And I don't know if it was because he was leaving or not. They gave him his certificate and they had it in a frame and it was all nice. And they kind of made like a ceremony out of it. Because they were leaving yesterday, we had a picnic down at the river. And usually I'm traveling on the weekends, so I don't hang out with the young Jew foreigners usually on the weekends, more on the weekdays. But this was an off week from traveling, and so I went and we played. We were playing softball, but people just didn't understand the rules. They're like, well, these are American rules, and these are American rules, but there's very few of us Americans actually playing, so people are just confused on like, well, can you run back? Can you have 2 people on base? Can it bounce once and then you catch it? Like, what are the rules? So we ended up playing a version it seemed more people knew called Rounders, which I didn't hear of, and then we dropped it to kickball. We're like, screw that, we're just gonna play simple. And it's really a testament of how global a situation I'm in right now, because we split up the teams, Northern Hemisphere versus Southern Hemisphere. So, USA, Canada, England, Ireland was on one team, and then South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand was on the other team. And, we had a lot of fun. We played till it was too dark to play anymore. We had picnic foods. So it was sad to see them go, but it was a good send-off. Next weekend I am going to Andong, not to visit Lori because Lori's fiance will be up and they are going to do their Japan trip next weekend. But I'm going to visit Kay. If you remember the woman that found me at the bus station and then took me to the train station and then kept me at her house for hours in the middle of the night entertaining me with her son, who I called Jelly Bean. I randomly ran into them in the market the other day when I went down to have lunch or dinner with my Korean co-scholar Sohee and Lori, and they seemed kind of put out by the fact that I was in Andong and I didn't contact them, even though I was there for literally a couple hours and then came back up to Yeongju. So I'm going down next weekend, and I don't know what they have planned for me, but she has 10 million things that she wanted to show me, restaurants and where her parents live and all these different things. So that's what I'm doing next weekend. Also trying to do more research because my trip to Japan is coming up at the end of the month. So if you live in Austin, and if there's anything that you would like to say, bring me, Clint would be more than thrilled to pack the stuff in his suitcase. And I mean, really, the bigger and the bulkier, it doesn't matter. You can pick whatever you want, and he'll bring it over here. He will be glad to do so. Just kidding. Clint is already bringing me some things from America that I want to give my children here. But I mean, if there's a note or something, I'm sure he can fit that. But looking forward to that. Really don't have too much planned, but I'm going to hopefully work on researching that this week. Other than that, life's pretty the same. Taekwondo is the same. Korean class, it seems like there's more and more people every class that come, which makes it actually a little bit harder because it seems like more and more people are getting more advanced and I'm still super basic. So I feel a little bit left behind now, which just means I need to do more studying on my own. And then I guess that's it. School's still going good. My students, every class they earn points, and when they have enough points, I set these markers along the way of how many points they need before we have a rewards day. And we had our first rewards day for my younger kids, but then the second rewards day for the older kids, because I see the older kids more, so they acquire more points. Some of them voted to watch English movies in class, and so we did that. My 6th graders actually watched School of Rock in class, which I'm generally not a Jack Black fan, but I could see a lot of parallels between him substitute teaching and me substitute teaching. And then my younger kids all wanted to play outside, so split my attention between those that wanted to play soccer. They like playing against me, but more often they're like, goalie, can you be goalie? And then they're like, oh, I'll be goalie. Not that I want to score goals against my kids, but I like to just get out there and play with them. And then when the other group likes to swing, and if I'm playing soccer, the people on the swings will be like, Teacher Audrey, and I can't split myself into two, so I try the best I can. I had actually my 3rd graders, they were on the swings and I was pushing them all, and they were kicking their shoes off. I'm like, this is not going to be a good idea because there's a tree right in front of the swings. Why do they put a tree in front of the swings? I don't know. And they were kicking their shoes off, and one of them kicked his shoe into the tree. I know you saw that coming. And so I'm hoisting this kid, who's a little chunk. I hoisted him up on my shoulder, and he's standing on my shoulders, and we're trying to get this shoe out of the tree. And finally we were able to. I'm like, they're never going to let me take these kids outside again. But it was a good break from them. We had a short week in class this week anyways, so I wanted to get fun for them. It's fun for me getting to play with the kids. I feel like they get to know me better, than they tend to listen more and behave more. So it was fun times. But that's it for now. We're getting some shade because that sun is glaring down at me. But I know you say